My name is Tim Birch and I've been a member of Toastmasters since 2013, and it's my pleasure to give this webinar about delivering speech evaluations. Speech evaluations are an essential element of the process of improving public speaking, but they also add real quality to the Toastmasters experience. By attending this webinar, you are showing genuine leadership by taking the time and trouble to learn about speech evaluations. The webinar is split into two parts. The first part will be a presentation lasting up to 15 minutes, and afterwards there will be a Q&A session where I will answer any questions. That said, let's begin. We have three objectives. The first objective is to look at the evaluation from the speaker's perspective and appreciate how the speaker learns from our evaluations. The second objective is to look at some tools and techniques to give world-class evaluations. And thirdly, we will also look at ways how we as evaluators can continue to improve our evaluation skills. So first, let's look at why people want to become better public speakers. There are many reasons, but I've limited the list to a few key points. The first point is major benefit is self-improvement. Speaking effectively requires the mastery of many skills such as vocal variety, body language, facial expressions, and good timing, to name but a few. Another advantage is gaining the knowledge to recognize and give different types of speech, like an entertainment, technical, or an informational, all of which require very different presentational styles. There is no question being able to articulate your values, ideas, and opinions improve job opportunities such as a teacher, consultant, or even a keynote speaker. Many other jobs benefit from good speaking skills, for example, giving work updates, client presentations, or sales pitches. There is no doubt joining an organization such as Toastmasters can be a lot of fun. You can meet some incredibly interesting people and make some very good friends. People who have been able to move out of their comfort zone whilst remaining in a safe environment grow in confidence. This is not limited to people with a fear of public speaking, but people with other difficulties can learn to work with or around their issues and consequently grow as individuals. Those were just a few reasons why people might want to improve their public speaking skills. Now let's look at how those reasons form the catalyst of our evaluation. The reasons we have seen on the previous slide play a major role in building an individual's self-esteem. They kickstart the speaker's interest in wanting to improve. Understanding a speaker's self-esteem is at the core of being a world-class evaluator. Self-esteem is quite simply the agent that fuels personal growth. To be a world-class speech evaluator, you need to understand the reasons, objectives, goals, and ambitions of the speaker. This allows you to tailor your feedback to the direct needs of the speaker. Moving to box 2, when we evaluate a speech, we need to underpin the speaker's self-esteem by reinforcing good behaviour and encouraging opportunities for growth. Box 3 is for us to make the speaker feel confident about making the necessary changes and to reap the benefits of the evaluation. And of course, the end result is the speaker takes our feedback, applies those lessons to the next speech and grows, and may even grow beyond their original goals. The cycle then starts again, each time with feedback from additional evaluations, allowing the speaker to grow. When we give an evaluation, it is important to follow some guidelines to ensure the speaker is truly able to profit. Let's go through some specific examples how we as evaluators could provide an evaluation. The first one is to be genuine. This isn't so simple as telling the truth. This is about being sincere. If you provide a lackluster evaluation without energy, empathy, or structure, your speaker will value your evaluation far less than if you put some thought, consideration, and effort into your feedback. The next point is to recognize strengths. Mention aspects of the speech that worked well or where the speaker had particular strength that provided an advantage. For example, if a speaker expressed a particular complex concept in a manner that was easy to understand, mention it and say why. Or if they had the audience on the edge of their seats, mention the fact and again also support your statement with an example or a reason why. Recognize improvement. The next one is to highlight areas where there has been improvement. If you have seen a speaker before or evaluated a speaker previously, this is a great opportunity to highlight a skill that you have seen improve. If you have not seen the speaker before, maybe get somebody else's opinion. Creating a climate for motivation may not be so obvious, but always ensure evaluations are something speakers look forward to rather than worrying about. Bring some humor to your evaluations, walk the talk, and set achievable goals in your evaluation. The next one is about avoiding any judgment values. When evaluating, we are evaluating the speech rather than the speaker. It is not our role to provide feedback to the speaker on the speaker or comment on the opinions of the speaker, but simply to state how those opinions could have been better expressed. Remember, your evaluation is your viewpoint. Therefore, avoid statements that give the impression you are talking on behalf of other people, such as "we think," "the audience would have benefited," and so on. Provide positive direction. It's essential you support each statement with an example and, if necessary, a method to improve. For example, "I really loved your speech because it included stories that I could relate to." Or, "It was difficult to hear you occasionally, but perhaps next time you can imagine talking to somebody at the back of the room." And don't forget the audience. Many of your comments might equally apply to the other members of the audience. So also address the audience and ensure they recognize opportunities to improve their speeches. This slide presents 3 basic methods to evaluate a speech. I will run through each method, highlighting their pros and cons. Tell and sell. This is the method we are most familiar with at Toastmasters. Time is fairly short, between 2 and 3 minutes, which can be seen as a benefit, but it also means you need to be concise and avoid wasting your time with unnecessary feedback. Communication is one way. The speaker listens whilst you provide an evaluation. This can cause friction, especially if the speaker thinks you have missed the point and he is unable to respond. The technique follows the 3-step method of mention the strengths, mention opportunities to improve, and finish with a clear positive message of encouragement. Evaluations for tell and sell are essentially covered during the club meetings. And the leadership, though, is very authoritative. Accordingly, I would generally avoid mixing up an advanced speaker with a new member. Toastmasters encourages the evaluator to discuss feedback with the speaker, maybe at the end of the meeting or during the break. With the tell and listen method, time does take a little bit longer, but does improve the quality. Communication here is the evaluation is definitely 2-way, which gives an opportunity to clarify any misunderstandings. Moving on to location, again, this can take place during the club meeting. And from a leadership point of view, it's fairly democratic in so much you can talk about solutions together and hopefully improve the improvements identified. The third method is problem solving. This method can be the most rewarding for both speaker and evaluator. It allows for a deep dive on specific speech objectives or on an issue the speaker may be struggling with. Ideally, the speaker should contact the evaluator in advance with any specific requests for clarity and any issues before the speech. From a time perspective, it does take the most time. The exact time is hard to state because so much depends on what needs to be discussed. From a communication perspective, this is very much into the discussion. Between you and the speaker, you might discuss the pros and cons of a new technique, and this would certainly benefit both you and the speaker. This often takes place before the club meeting and may well extend after the club meeting too. In many respects, ideas for improvements must be negotiated. The problem-solving method is a long way from the tell and sell. We now come to the final objective. Here we as evaluators can continue to improve our evaluation skills. First step is really to decide on what you would like to change as an evaluator. Having listened to this presentation, is there something you would like to change? For example, maybe you would like to focus more on recognizing improvement. So the second part will be to write down the benefits of that change. So for example, I would like to recognize improvements more often to help the speaker realize how much they have improved over time. As an evaluator, I would also learn by distinguishing different ways people can improve. The third point is to put that change into action. Try it out at the next opportunity. And importantly, make a note if it worked. The fourth point is to make a habit by repeating the process until it becomes habitual. And the last one is never stop improving. Keep looking for different ways to develop your skill set. Having discussed how we can improve, we should really act. After the presentation, write down your changes you would like to make in your current evaluation style or new techniques you would try out. So list 3 changes you would like to make before giving your next evaluation. So now we come to the second part of the presentation where I open the chat and take questions. So give me a second to get my chat open. And okay. Does anybody have any questions?
Tim, can you hear me? Hello, Tim.
I think it's best to use the chat for questions.
Yes, good point.
Anybody got any questions or have experiences they would like to share? Let me just bring that question into, you mentioned, so Leonard had asked the question, you mentioned earlier that if you don't know the speaker, you need a second opinion, but you said you evaluate the speech, not the speaker. What exactly do you mean? I know if this is a new speaker or an advanced speaker. What I meant by that, if I find myself in a situation where there's a speaker I'm evaluating and I've not met that speaker before, or I've not actually seen that speaker speak, then I might ask somebody how they were originally. Were they nervous? What sort of issues they thought they could remember? Like, did they have good eye contact? Did they have vocal issues? So I just ask somebody if they could, you know, give their opinion on issues with their speech previously, just so I could reference back to that. I hope that answers your question. Okay, I see another question. It says, how much time do you recommend for preparation for a 2 to 3 minute evaluation during a club meeting? Personally, I did an evaluation on Tuesday evening and I probably spent about 10 minutes plus on that. What I find is that I need to write down the text, then I start replaying it, and it's only then that I sort of get ideas about how to express certain aspects of the evaluation. So I personally spend fair amount of time on the evaluations, but I do know clubs where they go straight into the evaluation immediately after the speech. I think there are pros and cons in the sense when you have an evaluation which is immediately after a speech, it's very it can be very authentic. But if you have an advanced speaker, and I was evaluating an advanced speaker on Tuesday night, I think that requires a little bit more thought and attention. I don't think as an advanced speaker you should be talking about transitions and voice quality and things like that. You need to be really looking at much more in-depth things about how they interacted with the audience, and sometimes you may need to go and talk to other Toastmasters to see what they felt, to make sure that you're giving some very in-depth feedback to advanced speakers. Just checking. Another question, when giving evaluation feedback, it is usually recommended at Toastmasters to use the sandwich technique. What if the evaluator can't find any improvement? What should be done in that case? I struggle with that question in the sense there is always room for improvement. What do I mean by that? You can look at maybe the gestures that speaker has made, and in hindsight you can probably recommend there are other gestures that he could consider. I would be interested to understand, I think, why you could not find something that could be commented on. After all, you're giving your opinion, and so one thing, if you are really struggling to find something to improve on, maybe you can just give alternatives, just to give an idea of what could be done in the future. I'll read another one. Some clubs like to have a free exchange. Other members next to the evaluation speaker are allowed to give their thoughts. What's your opinion on this? I like this. I've seen this at other clubs and I've participated in this type of evaluation. And I like it. It takes different forms. I've seen where the evaluator gives their feedback first, and then the Toastmaster of the evening goes round the other members and asks what they think. And it's quite interesting what you see. Then you see quite a huge, what I've seen is quite a variety of ideas and opinions, which actually, as one evaluator, you may not have thought about. So you see different perspectives by doing this. And one thing I haven't actually covered in my speech, there are about, Toastmasters promotes, I think it's about 5 or 6 different types of evaluation. So I would actually definitely think this is a credible way and an interesting way that we should do evaluations. It keeps it lively for a club to vary the process on providing evaluations. Let me just read another question. Some evaluation speakers look at the speaker only, not at the rest of the audience during the evaluation. What to do? How to prepare oneself as an evaluation speaker before the meeting? I think it's very important not to just focus on the speaker. They form the content of your evaluation, but it's also important to look at the audience and make it clear that there are some aspects of your evaluation that could equally apply to them as well. So during the evaluation, what I try to do is to give feedback directly on the points that the speaker has mentioned to me that they want direct feedback on. So I'm really showing the speaker that I'm giving them my full attention for those points they've highlighted. But similarly, I then, excuse me, I look to the rest of the audience for the general feedback and try to make it clear that it may be aspects that they might benefit from. the other part of that question was to ask how you prepare yourself for evaluation. I think it's very important that the speaker also takes responsibility here. I personally, as an evaluator, genuinely put in some time and effort. So I would also expect that the speaker respects that and sends me an email before they have that speech to make sure that I'm aware of the speech that they are giving and any aspects that they are interested in me covering. I also make sure that I go through the speech manual. I don't, you know, I'm going to be honest, I don't read the whole of the text, but I definitely look through the key objectives of that speech and the evaluation points to make sure that during the meeting, when you do have very little time, you can actually give some considered feedback to the objectives of the speech. I'm just reading through some other questions that have come up. Okay, another question is, which differences do you see between evaluation speeches in our regular meetings and the evaluation speeches in an evaluation contest? This is a very interesting question, and the presentation that I've done this evening is very much based on evaluations that within the club. If you're evaluating in a contest, be very aware that the judges have got a sheet in front of them, and I can't remember exactly how many points, but they are judging your evaluation based on some specific points. I think it's maybe about 8 or 10 points. And if I was evaluating at a contest, I would definitely take the time and trouble to look at that form that the judges use and focus my attention on those points. I'll give you one example. I think from memory when I've been judging myself, one is dress sense. And although as an evaluator at the club level, we shouldn't be judging the speaker, this particular evaluation criterion goes against that, in the sense they're making sure that you are dressed appropriately. So if I was evaluating at the contest level, I would definitely take the time and trouble to check out the judges' form to see what criteria they are using. So another question from Manuel is, how tough can one be with a speaker giving an icebreaker? I want him to grow as a speaker, but don't want to discourage the speaker. I'm definitely sort of a Toastmaster through and through when it comes to evaluations. I don't believe there is much room in giving any negative feedback. If something doesn't go well, let's just say that a speaker, you can't hear a speaker that's speaking too softly, or they're looking at the ground. I would use the phrase saying, and I have used this phrase, saying, you've got a great voice. It's clear to hear, but what you need to do now is turn up the volume on that voice, or something like that. I would never use negative comments when it comes to any evaluation. I think this is one lesson that I've learned from Toastmasters. Negative evaluations, even in the work environment, works just for a very short period of time. But to get long, sustained growth, you have to find items that need to be improved, but express your feedback in a positive way. Manuel, I hope that answers your question. If not, just send me another chat. I'm just reading some more comments. So John has asked the question, how do you make your evaluation speech stand out at an evaluation contest? So to me, the tricks of the trade when it comes to Toastmasters is always use humor. I generally like to do technical evaluations, so I really like to be very explicit about what tools and techniques can be used to improve the speeches. But if you actually want to win, if you want to win the best evaluation ribbon, you have to use a little bit of humor. You also have to be a little bit emotional. So bring in some values and feelings, and you'll be surprised what might happen. But from a technical point of view, it may not be the best evaluation. But if you want your evaluation to stand out, use humor. So Andreas has asked, yesterday, having delivered my evaluation speech, I had the feeling that I criticized a speaker that works on his level 1 in pathways too hard. What to do? What I think you're saying, Andreas, is that you felt you're a bit harsh on the speaker. Go and talk to him afterwards. I think that's what I would do, and make sure that you have a bit of a dialogue to make sure that the point that you were trying to make was clear. I hope that answers your question. I'll just see if I can find some more questions further up. Elizabeth makes a good point that, and I particularly like this one, and I'm glad I've picked it up, that some of the points used work not only at Toastmasters, and I think this is actually what Toastmasters is trying to get over in its leadership tract. A lot of what we learn at Toastmasters can be equally used elsewhere. Yeah, you don't use words like evaluation, you would use feedback and advice and things like that. So you would use different words and terminology, but I as a project manager, I work a lot with people, and trying to get them sometimes to do work or to do good work does require a lot of skills that I've learned at Toastmasters, and evaluation is a very good point in question. If people have not done work to the expected quality, certainly in the environments I work in, criticizing somebody is not going to get you very far. So you learn to express yourself in ways which encourages them to improve, and genuinely the skills that I've learned during and giving evaluations has helped me in that. Yeah, I see that. I had a lot of trouble with the speakers, so I've switched them off, so I'm just using the chat. I see a question about using the sandwich technique, and I typically try to mention 3 strong points and 3 suggestions for improvements. I don't actually stick to any rules when it comes to numbers. I'd rather the speaker remembered 1 point to improve than 3. or vice versa. I'll be happy if you remember 3. For me, it's about the quality and really genuinely picking up on aspects of the speech that I enjoyed, and repeating that to make sure that they understood that those were the points that I definitely took away. And if I see that there's an opportunity for improvement, then I would mention that. What I mentioned earlier is actually I genuinely don't always see opportunities for improvement, so I give an alternative suggestion to what could have happened at that situation, and maybe that helps the speaker by giving him additional options. So if I mean, there's been many questions, and thank you for that. Maybe I'll take one more, but don't rush off. I've actually got a bonus slide for you. So John asks, if you evaluate a series of speeches, are you allowed to imply which speeches you liked more? I think you are, very much. And what you should be highlighting is areas which have improved. And if maybe the speaker has started to let some standards drop, to also mention that point as well, saying that previously you would have done that. And maybe you need to think about your energy levels during the speech or something like this. But I would absolutely reference back to previous speeches and tell them if they are improving. I'm just reading another comment. So by alternative options, you offer the speaker a piece of advice. What can be done as well? Do I understand correctly? Let me just read that again. I'll give you one example, what I've seen. At the club, my home club, we have a experienced salesperson. So this guy is incredibly comfortable when it comes to standing at the front of the stage. And he's done a couple of things which I've not seen very often. He's walked down the center of the room, or he's actually walked around the outside of the audience. And that's what I mean by giving alternatives. I saw a speech last Tuesday where he was giving his icebreaker, and what he did was to start off on the left-hand side of the stage and move to the right-hand side to indicate a timeline, which was great. But as an alternative, you might have been able to suggest to him that he used more of the room that he had, or he could move down the center of the audience. So just giving him alternatives to how he could have used the room and the stage. Neither option is wrong. Neither option is better than the other, but it's just giving him a different and additional ideas of how he could use the space. I hope that answers your question. Okay, I think we're really coming slowly to the end. Maybe I'll take one last question, but as I say, don't rush off because I have got a bonus slide. Okay, so nothing's coming in. So let me just go to the last couple of slides. Toastmasters really has a huge amount of material when it comes to evaluations. And what I'm doing here is providing you with a list. They publish several types of evaluation forms and manuals, plus material for a 2.5-hour evaluation workshop. This slide just shows you some of the material that you can find both at the Toastmasters shop Not everything is at the Toastmasters shop still, but you can just search online and you find some very high quality copies. So that does bring me to the end of my presentation. It has been a real pleasure to give you this presentation. And if you want to reach me with additional questions or feedback, Toastmaster members can reach me via my Easy Speak under the username of Soliamt. My slides are already available, and I will correct the spelling mistake on LinkedIn SlideShare. And the recording of this presentation will be available on the Toastmasters International District 109 channel in, I think it's a week or so. So many thanks again. I really appreciate this opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining. Thanks, Tim, for your presentation. And we see us then at the next webinar, hopefully all of us, or even some more people as well, on the 12th of December. Until then, enjoy evening. Have a good time. Bye-bye.